of his Western enemies. He earned that respect because he was prepared to stand up and demand his rights. We need to celebrate our differences and protect Islam while making a positive contribution to the society in which we live. And that's why, going back again to the Muslim policewoman from Peterborough, I was just so happy to see someone who was prepared to defend their faith, pursue a career, and contribute towards the society in which we live. And it's interesting that she chose the law as a path for her career, because, as I said before, there is a strong theme of justice running through Islam. And there has been a lot of injustices lately, particularly about the hijab and the niqab. Of course, it all kicked off over the sister who went to see her MP to talk about an issue that was bothering her, and she wanted to raise it with her democratically elected leader. Unfortunately for her, her MP turned out to be Jack Straw, and he said that he was rather uncomfortable about the issue of the niqab. And before we knew it, the whole issue of the niqab was being debated not just in Britain, but right across the world. A few weeks ago, I don't know if you listened to the James Whale radio show, but he invited me on, and we got onto the subject of the niqab. And he said, "Yvonne, I don't like it because I can't see what a person is thinking. I don't know how genuine they are being. I'm not sure how I can communicate with them." I said, "James, you have 2 million listeners. We're talking to them now. You can't see them, they can't see you. And you're talking about the niqab in such an issue?" And of course, he started to see it in a different light. Think about it. In this world of communicating, we communicate by text message, we communicate by fax, by telephone, by mobile phone, by letters. We don't need to see each other's faces to communicate. We really do have to stand up for those sisters who choose to wear the niqab, because the reasons that they choose to wear the niqab is because they feel it would bring them closer to Allah, and they should be supported and encouraged and not looked upon as somebody out of step. Another critic was the Bishop of Rochester, who really outed himself just a few weeks ago as a total Islamophobe by saying that Muslims were creating no-go areas. That is absolute rubbish, and he was roundly condemned across the board, and so he should have been. But the Bishop of Rochester said he wasn't happy with the niqab. He said it didn't look that good. There was something not right about it. This is a man who wears a pointy hat and a purple dress. Then we had Dr. John Reid and Gordon Brown before he became Prime Minister, who said they weren't that happy about the niqab either. These are two Scotsmen who come from a country where men wear pleated skirts. I do wish men would stay out of our wardrobes. But as I say, we really do have to defend our sisters who choose to wear the niqab. If we see an injustice, the Quran tells us we must not be silent. If someone attacks our faith, our Islam, we must stand up and defend it. What are we afraid of? We're told, fear no one but Allah. The late Sheikh Abdullah Azam, a wonderful scholar and a wonderful example of a Muslim, said, Muslims cannot be defeated by others. We Muslims are not defeated by our enemies, but instead we are defeated by our own selves. And I often think that that is true. I wonder how many of you stood up and defended the actions of the Sudanese government over the teddy bear incident. Remember when the school teacher from Liverpool chose to go out and work in Sudan, in a Muslim country, no doubt earning tax-free wages. She said herself she was going on an adventure. You would have to be deaf, dumb and blind today not to realise just how much we Muslims revere our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And while the Sudanese authorities might have taken a sledgehammer to crack a nut, their decision to jail this teacher was no more outrageous than some of the decisions we have seen against Muslims in British courts. And yet our community leaders remain silent about those injustices, and yet they were all running to the radio and the television to condemn the Sudanese authorities for their action. As I said before, you'd have to be deaf, dumb and blind not to know how much we love our beloved Prophet. But you know, maybe 6-7 years ago, I had never heard of the Prophet Muhammad. Since I embraced Islam, I would give my last drop to defend his honour, his memory, everything about him. And calling a teddy bear after our beloved Prophet, or any Prophet, peace be upon them all, is not acceptable. I wouldn't dream of going to Tel Aviv and hold a pig roast. So why is it that people think that they can continually trample on our feelings and our love and respect for the Prophet Muhammad? The sad thing about it was the amount of community leaders who stood up and condemned the Sudanese authorities, while at the same time they were remarkably silent over the case of Samina Malik, who had been given a 9-month suspended sentence, having been convicted and branded of being a terrorist for expressing her ideas in writing and possessing books which are freely available on the internet. She was found not guilty of inciting or engaging in violence, essentially proving that she had been convicted of thought crimes. Where were the community leaders when Samina Malik was convicted? For writing some poetry. Not very good poetry, in my personal view. The poetry was in bad taste, in my view, but she didn't pose any threat at all to this country, and this was a point acknowledged by the judge. And yet, as I say, she was convicted by the British courts, and the Muslim community was largely silent, with the exception of the Islamic Human Rights Commission, who stood alone defending a young Muslim sister. There are many other instances where Muslim leaders tell us to keep our heads down, to say nothing.